So let's take a look at how we can split data out of cells in Google Sheets. What you see here is a column that was collected from a Google Sheet where the best planning was not in place, because the best planning would be to have a separate question for first name and last name. In this case, they're being collected together, and it looks as though the people were prompted to put in their last name first and a comma in their first name. Well, this doesn't do us any good when we want to start sorting data and doing things like that. So oftentimes we need to be able to split this kind of data up. So we're going to do this a few different ways. We're going to start real simple, and then we're going to get a little more advanced in order to make it a little better. So I'm going to start with the simplest way. First thing you want to do is add cells to the space where you want to split the names. So we've got these two names here, so we need two cells. So I'm just going to insert one left and insert one left again. There are other ways to do it, but that's how I'm doing it. So the simplest way to do this is to just use the split function, okay? And that can be found from here, and then of course if I go to text, you'll see that split is here. Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to put that in. Now split really takes actually 4 arguments, but only 2 of them are required, so I'm going to show you those. Okay, the first thing you need to do is tell it what cell you're splitting. So I'm going to click here. Then the next thing you need to do is tell it what character in the cell is going to create the split. In this case, it's the comma, right? So I'm going to do this, then this, and this. Now let's look at what I did. Okay, oh, I missed something here. I've got to put this comma in to separate it. So this is what you're going to want when you split, okay? What I've got is the split, the cell that I'm splitting, okay? And then what I've got to separate it by a comma, and then what I am using to split that data, which in this case is the comma you can see down here, and that has to be in quotation marks. So hopefully this will work. Of course it did. Now you can see how nicely it did this. By the way, this will not work properly if you do not make the columns first. Make sure you make the columns first. Okay, so that's pretty good, except if I have this space right here, it's not good, okay? It's not a catastrophe, but it's not perfect, okay? Now one thing I could do is do a search and replace to remove the space, but that's not what this tutorial is about. So the next thing we want to do is trim the space. We want to get rid of this space, okay? So that gets a little more complicated. We're going to incorporate the trim function, which is another text function. It can be found from here, but in this case, I'm just going to put it in manually. So I'm going to type in the word trim, and it has to have its own set of parentheses. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go here, and let's see what happens. I'm going to hit enter. Not what we want, because now the first name isn't happening. Now why is that? I don't want to get too deep into the explanation to get confusing. There are places where you can look this up, but trim only takes one parameter, and it doesn't take what's called an array, which it's just the way it works. I really don't want to get too deeply into it, but I do want to show you how to solve the problem. To solve this problem, don't think too much about this, but just do this as a given. Okay, so once you get, the good news is that once you watch this video, once you get this formula, the syntax of this formula, you can just use this over and over again. So I'm going to put in the formula the way I have it. I actually have it here. I'm just pasting it in. But rather than watch me type it, I want to explain it. So I'm surrounding the whole thing here, trim, split, all that. I'm surrounding the whole thing with this thing that's called array formula. Don't fight this, just use it, okay? Don't worry about explaining it. But to make a long story short, it just allows us to mix array functions and not array functions. If you don't know what that means, who cares? Because we're going to make this work one way or the other. So I'm going to hit enter, And sure enough, I get what I want. I have my space removed. Okay, that's beautiful. And now if I just take this formula down and use my copy technique, I have a nice set of names right here. Now, this set of names I don't want to see anymore, okay? But I can't get rid of them, but I can hide them. Okay, so if I do hide column, I have a beautiful spreadsheet.